Then he paused. A stray thought crossed his mind. Who would Alessia's child take after? If it was a girl, she would probably look like her mother, especially with those amber eyes. After gently coaxing the baby to sleep, Vito turned to leave. The long day was finally over, and he had finally remembered. Marco, go get Alessia. It's over. Time for her to see the baby. Scarlett is safe. Tell her she can deliver now. Marco stood frozen, not moving an inch. His body trembled with a terror Vito couldn't comprehend. After a long moment, he finally forced the words out, his voice a raw whisper. Boss, Mrs. Alessia and the baby. They're gone. Vito froze. The words hung in the air like a death sentence, sharp and unforgiving. He stared at Marco, his mind refusing to process what he'd just heard. Gone? He repeated, his voice hollow. What do you mean gone? She was locked in the underground room. How could she be gone? Marco's face was ashen. He shifted his weight, his hands trembling at his sides. I don't know, boss. When I went to check on her, the door was ajar. The room was a mess, blood everywhere. The doctor said she was poisoned, snake venom. And the baby didn't make it. Vito felt the world tilt beneath his feet. He stumbled back, grabbing onto a nearby table to steady himself. Poisoned? Snake venom? Gianna. It was Gianna. She'd mentioned her pet snake earlier, had complained about Alessia hurting it. He'd brushed it off as another of his sister's tantrums, but now it all made sense. He thought of Alessia's screams, her pleas for help. He thought of her clutching her stomach, begging him to let her go to the hospital. He thought of the way he'd grabbed her by the throat, calling her a liar, accusing her of trying to steal the inheritance. Guilt crashed over him like a wave, so intense it felt like he was drowning. No, he said, shaking his head. No, this can't be true. She's fine. She's just trying to trick me. She always does. But Marco's expression didn't change. He pulled a crumpled piece of paper from his pocket and handed it to Vito. The doctor found this in her hand. It's a letter. Vito took the paper, his hands shaking so badly he could barely hold it. The ink was smudged, stained with blood, but he could still make out Alessia's handwriting, neat, elegant, the same handwriting she'd used to write him love letters when they'd first started dating. Vito, it read. If you're reading this, I'm already gone. I tried to fight. For me, for our baby. But I couldn't. The pain was too much. The venom, the drug, the kicks to my stomach. I'm sorry I couldn't protect him. I'm sorry I couldn't be the wife you wanted. I just wanted you to love us, to choose us. But you never did. You chose Scarlett. You chose the inheritance. You chose everything except me. I forgive you, Vito. I always will. But I hope you never forgive yourself. I hope every time you look at Scarlett's baby, you remember the one you lost. The one you killed. Goodbye. Vito crumpled the letter in his hand, his chest heaving with sobs. He'd killed her. He'd killed his wife and his unborn child. All because of a stupid blood oath. All because he'd let his obsession with the West Coast territory blind him to the woman who loved him. He pushed past Marco and ran toward the underground room. The door was still ajar, and when he stepped inside, the stench of blood and snake venom hit him like a punch to the gut. The floor was stained dark red, and there was a single, small footprint in the blood, Alessia's, from when she crawled toward the door. He fell to his knees, his hands pressing against the cold, blood-soaked floor. Alessia, he whispered, his voice broken. Alessia, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But there was no answer. No soft laugh, no gentle touch, no loving smile. Just silence. Just the empty, sterile room that had become her tomb. Gianna walked in behind him, her snake coiled around her arm. She saw Vito on the floor and sneered. What's wrong, brother? Finally realized what you lost? Good. She deserved it. She was never fit to be a Falcone. Vito stood up, his eyes filled with rage. He grabbed Gianna by the throat, slamming her against the wall. You did this, he said, his voice low and dangerous. You poisoned her. You kicked her. You killed my baby. Gianna struggled against his grip, her eyes wide with fear. I didn't. She hurt Medusa. She deserved it. And Scarlett's baby is the rightful heir. Alessia's child would have ruined everything. Vito tightened his grip, his knuckles white. Ruined everything? You ruined everything. She was my wife, my child, and you killed them. He threw her to the ground, and she landed with a thud. Get out of my sight, he said, his voice cold. If I ever see you again, I'll kill you myself. Gianna scrambled to her feet, her face pale, and ran out of the room. Vito watched her go, then turned back to the bloodstains on the floor. He fell to his knees again, his body racked with sobs. He stayed there for hours, until Marco found him and gently pulled him to his feet. Boss, you need to rest. You can't stay here. Vito shook his head. I can't leave her. I can't leave them. But Marco was right. He couldn't stay in that room forever. He had to face what he'd done. He had to face Scarlett and the baby she'd given birth to, the baby that had cost him everything. Chapter 5. Vito returned to Scarlett's clinic the next morning. The staff avoided his gaze, their faces filled with fear and pity. He walked into Scarlett's room and she looked up at him, a smile on her face. Vito, you're back. Look at our son. Isn't he perfect? She held the baby out to him, but Vito didn't take him. him. He stared at the infant, at his tiny hands and feet, and all he could see was the child he'd lost. The child he'd never get to hold, never get to love, never get to watch grow up. Scarlett's smile faded. Vito, what's wrong? You look terrible. He turned to her, his eyes filled with pain. Alessia's dead, he said, his voice flat. She's dead, and so is our baby. All because I locked her away. All because I chose you. Scarlett's face went white. She set the baby down in the bassinet and stood up, her hands trembling. I didn't know. I didn't mean for this to happen. I wanted my baby to be safe. I wanted him to have the inheritance he deserved. Deserved? Vito laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. What about what Alessia deserved? What about what my baby deserved? They deserved to live. They deserved to be loved. But I took that from them. I took everything from them. He walked to the window, staring out at the city below. I made a blood oath to Demon. I promised to protect you and your baby. But I forgot about the people who loved me. I forgot about the woman who married me, who carried my child. I was so focused on the territory, on the family name, that I lost everything that mattered. Scarlett walked over to him, placing a hand on his arm. Vito, I'm sorry, but we can't change the past. We have to move forward, for our son. Vito pulled away from her. Our son, he said, his voice sharp. He's not my son. He's Demon's son. And I'll raise him. I'll give him the inheritance. But don't think for a second that I'll ever forget what I lost because of him. Because of you. He turned and walked out of the room, leaving Scarlett standing there, tears in her eyes. He didn't look back. He couldn't. Every time he saw that baby, he'd be reminded of the one he'd killed. Every time he saw Scarlett, he'd be reminded of the choice he'd made. In the weeks that followed, Vito became a shell of himself. He threw himself into work, taking over the West Coast territory and expanding the family's business. But he never smiled. He never laughed. He never spoke of Alessia, but her memory haunted him every night. He'd wake up screaming, seeing her face covered in blood, hearing her baby's faint cries. Marco tried to help. He suggested therapy, suggested taking a vacation, suggested anything that might help Vito heal. But Vito refused. He didn't want to heal. He wanted to suffer. He wanted to pay for what he'd done. One day, Marco handed him a small box. The doctor found this in the underground room, he said. It's hers. Vito opened the box. Inside was a small, knitted baby blanket, soft blue, with a tiny falcon crest stitched into the corner. Alessia had been making it for their baby. She'd told him about it once, her eyes shining with excitement. I want him to have something from us, she'd said. Something to remember us by. Vito held the blanket to his chest, his body shaking with sobs. He'd never get to see his baby wrapped in it. He'd never get to tell him how much his mother loved him. He'd never get to make things right.